Ontario is home to an amazingly rich diversity of species. From polar bears in the far north to prickly-peared cactus and hooded warblers in the deep south. Unfortunately, many of them are in danger of disappearing from the wild in Canada. In fact, more than 450 wild plant and animal species in Canada could disappear if nothing is done. And almost 40% of those are found here in Ontario. Species like the piping plover, the spotted turtle, the dense blazing star, and the Lake Erie water snake. Many of them are found in the south, where expanding cities and other kinds of human activities are putting pressure on the habitat they need to survive. Important habitats like wetlands, Carolinian forest, and tallgrass prairie are slowly disappearing, along with the creatures that depend upon them. Losing even one species weakens the natural environment, and in turn threatens our health, economy, and the legacy we leave for future generations. But it doesn't have to be that way. The Government of Canada is working hard to protect our biodiversity. Key strategies include funding and incentive programs to protect species at risk, and the recently proclaimed Species at Risk Act. The Species at Risk Act emphasizes habitat and species protection through voluntary stewardship. The Act also includes specific prohibitions and stiff penalties to protect species at risk and their habitats. Under the Act, recovery strategies, action plans, and management plans are required within strict timelines for all designated species. They are available for public review, and public comments are encouraged. Strategies and plans have to be based on sound science, combined with practical, on-the-ground knowledge. Across the province, biologists, naturalists, and volunteers are monitoring species at risk. They're doing things like checking nests, tracking turtle movements using radio telemetry, banding birds, and taking samples for DNA analysis. Why? So that we can understand the threats species are facing today and what changes are needed now and in the future to help them survive and recover.
There we go.
Researchers are also evaluating habitat to make sure that critical areas get protected.
Hey, and Sarah, the tree to the right there?
Environment Canada, Parks Canada, and Fisheries and Oceans Canada are all working hard to protect species at risk, in partnership with each province and territory. But it's not just government that has a role to play. Protection depends on many partnerships. The Species at Risk Act recognizes the essential role of Aboriginal peoples and their traditional knowledge in the protection and recovery of species at risk. Many individuals and groups have become involved in species at risk projects through the federal Habitat Stewardship Program. Like these high school students who are restoring grassland in Napanee for the endangered eastern loggerhead shrike, a predatory songbird that needs short grass to spot its next meal. On the Bruce Peninsula, farmers are generously making space on their land for these large outdoor breeding cages. Young shrikes born here are released in the fall, hopefully to return the next spring to help re-establish a wild shrike population. And on Pelee Island, at the southernmost tip of Ontario, volunteers are restoring wetlands that one day may provide a home for spotted turtles, king rails, and dozens of other species. In central Ontario, the Alderville First Nation community groups are planting wild lupins to pave the way for the recovery of the Carner blue butterfly. Along the north shore of Lake Erie, an old roadbed in Holiday Beach Conservation Area was removed and flooded to create nesting habitat for the prothonotary warbler, one of Canada's rarest birds. And across the nation, thousands of hectares of private land have been protected through Canada's Ecological Gifts program. It's a simple and flexible way for Canadians to make sure that a piece of nature that they've cherished for years will be cared for in the future. All of these actions are helping species at risk. Clearly, the success of recovery efforts depends on our actions. You can help by learning more about species at risk and supporting conservation projects in your community. Together, we can preserve Ontario's rich biodiversity and create a lasting legacy for everybody to enjoy.